For hundreds of millions of people, it's a symbol of relief, a pocket-sized device that restores breath during the frightening grip of an asthma attack. But this humble inhaler holds a secret. With each life-saving puff, it releases not just medicine, but a potent, invisible threat to the very air we all breathe. In a cruel twist of irony, the treatment for respiratory disease is an often overlooked contributor to the climate change that is, in turn, worsening the very conditions these inhalers are designed to combat. This is the story of that unintended consequence and how we can fix it. Welcome to Fun Facts Online. Let's start with the science. Inhaled therapies are delivered through three main types of devices: pressurized metered dose inhalers, or pMDIs, dry powder inhalers, or DPIs, and soft mist inhalers. Their carbon footprints are vastly different. The primary culprit is the pMDI, often called a puffer. To deliver medication, it relies on a propellant, a liquefied gas that creates an aerosol spray. For years, these propellants were chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, which were found to be devastating the Earth's ozone layer. Following a global phase-out, the industry switched to hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs. While safe for the ozone, HFCs are potent greenhouse gases. We measure this using a scale called global warming potential, or GWP, where carbon dioxide is a 1. One of the common HFCs in inhalers has a GWP of 1,430. Another has a GWP of 3,220. This means that over 100 years, a single kilogram of that gas traps as much heat as over 3,000 kilograms of CO2. The numbers are staggering. The carbon footprint of a single pMDI with 100 doses can be equivalent to driving a car for 180 miles. And over 85% of that impact comes from the propellant gas itself, which is released during use and continues to leak into the atmosphere from landfills even after the inhaler is empty. In stark contrast, dry powder inhalers and soft mist inhalers have a much smaller carbon footprint, typically over 95% lower than pMDIs, because they don't use a propellant at all. The story of how we got here is a classic case of solving one crisis only to contribute to another. It begins with the landmark 1987 Montreal Protocol, one of history's most successful environmental treaties. It mandated a global phase-out of ozone-depleting CFCs. Recognizing that inhalers were critical for health, the treaty granted a special use exemption while the industry searched for alternatives. It took nearly 2 decades and $2 billion to develop CFC-free inhalers. HFCs emerged as the best replacement. They were stable, safe for inhalation, and didn't harm the ozone layer. At the time, scientists knew HFCs were greenhouse gases, but the immediate threat was ozone depletion, and HFCs were seen as an overall environmental win. Now the world is confronting the legacy of that decision. The 2016 Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol is a global agreement to phase down HFCs by more than 80% over the next 30 years. This time, there's no medical use exemption, which is accelerating the race to find the next generation of even greener propellants. The collective impact of these individual puffs is huge. A 2024 study in the United States found that between 2014 and 2024, inhalers generated nearly 25 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions. That's comparable to the annual emissions of about 530,000 gasoline-powered cars. Metered dose inhalers accounted for a staggering 98% of these emissions. In the United Kingdom, the situation is similar. pMDIs are responsible for an estimated 3 to 4% of the entire National Health Service carbon footprint, making them the single largest carbon contributor of any medicine. This is particularly striking because of prescribing patterns. In the UK and US, about 70 to 75% of all inhalers prescribed are pMDIs. In stark contrast, a country like Sweden made a concerted effort to switch to greener alternatives, and now pMDIs make up only 10% of their inhaler market. This problem is made all the more poignant by a dangerous feedback loop. The greenhouse gases from inhalers contribute to climate change, and climate change worsens respiratory diseases, which increases the demand for inhalers. Rising global temperatures lead to more ground-level ozone, a powerful lung irritant. Prolonged heat and drought create ideal conditions for wildfires and dust storms, which cause massive air pollution. A warming climate also leads to longer and more intense pollen seasons. This creates a vicious cycle where the tools used to manage climate-sensitive diseases are simultaneously contributing to the underlying environmental crisis. For any patient, the most important feature of an inhaler is its ability to deliver medicine effectively. The decision of which inhaler to use is a clinical one, and the environmental impact cannot come at the expense of good disease control. Let's compare the devices. Pressurized metered dose inhalers, or pMDIs, are portable and can be used even when someone is short of breath. Their biggest drawback is the need for coordination. The user has to press the canister and inhale slowly at the exact same time. Studies show that incorrect technique is extremely common, with some estimates suggesting up to 87% of patients make at least one error. This means less medicine reaches the lungs. This can be overcome with a spacer, a plastic chamber that holds the puff of medicine, but many don't use one. Dry powder inhalers, or DPIs, are breath-actuated, which eliminates the coordination problem. However, they require the user to take a quick, deep breath, which can be difficult for young children or someone having a severe attack. Soft mist inhalers, or SMIs, are propellant-free and use a spring to generate a slow-moving mist that's easy to inhale, combining some of the best features of both. The key takeaway is that for many adult patients, DPIs and SMIs are equally as effective as pMDIs. In fact, switching to an easier-to-use DPI can sometimes improve disease control by fixing the common technique errors associated with pMDIs. So why haven't more countries switched to lower-carbon inhalers? The barriers are complex. Many healthcare professionals lack awareness about the environmental impact or feel they don't have time to discuss options. Prescribing habits become ingrained. There's also a perception of cost. While some greener inhalers have a higher upfront price, studies in the UK have shown that if doctors switch to the least expensive equivalent DPIs, it could actually save the healthcare system millions of pounds. Patients are also a factor. They are often comfortable with the inhaler they've always used and can be resistant to change. But the path forward is clear and filled with promising solutions. First, a new generation of propellants is on the horizon. Companies are in the late stages of testing pMDIs that use propellants with near-zero global warming potential. These could be available as early as 2025 and could reduce the carbon footprint of a pMDI by 90 to 99%. This is a crucial technological fix, as pMDIs will always be the necessary option for some patients. Second is empowering patients and clinicians through shared decision-making. This means an open conversation where a provider and patient can jointly choose an inhaler that is clinically appropriate, easy to use correctly, and aligns with their values, including environmental concerns. It cannot be stressed enough. The most environmentally friendly inhaler is the one that keeps a patient's respiratory disease well controlled. Poorly controlled asthma leads to more frequent use of reliever inhalers and potential hospital visits, all of which carry their own significant carbon footprint. The first step is always to optimize treatment. For a patient whose condition is well controlled, a switch to a greener option can be considered, but only with proper training on the new device and a follow-up to ensure it's working. Finally, proper disposal is a simple yet powerful action. Used inhalers should never be put in household recycling or general waste, because the remaining propellant will leak out. Instead, all used inhalers should be returned to a pharmacy, where they can be disposed of through medical waste incineration, which destroys the harmful gases. Innovative recycling programs are also emerging that capture and repurpose the propellant and plastic. So what can you do? If you use an inhaler, Make sure you have at least an annual review with your healthcare provider. During that review, ask the question, is this the right inhaler for me and for the planet? Are there lower carbon options that would be suitable? Ask them to check your technique to ensure you're getting the medicine where it needs to go. And always return your used inhalers to a pharmacy for safe disposal. The story of the inhaler is not one of despair, but of opportunity. It shows the power of science and global cooperation to solve complex environmental challenges. By optimizing disease control, choosing the right inhaler for the right patient, and disposing of devices responsibly, we can ensure that the act of breathing easier does not come at the expense of the planet. Protecting personal health and public health are two breaths from the same lung, essential for a healthy and sustainable future.